Hey guys, how's it going? Companion here. Today I want to talk about the Grim Patron Warrior deck, and I feel it's a very relevant topic right now because right now we are in the stage where there's a lot of tournaments going on. There's a lot on the line for the players in the competitive scene because BlizzCon is coming up. And, people get to see the decks roll out. People get to see how the decks have changed, or, as you guys will soon learn, not have changed very much since the TGT expansion in the competitive side of the constructed Hearthstone scene. And, turns out there's still a lot of dudes getting in here. So there is a bit of a relevant statistics when it comes to that, and I wanted to go over that a little bit today. It is very interesting. Some of the information I present you guys are basically statistics on actual tournaments. So some of it is fact, and some of it is my interpretation of these statistics. So one thing we can see, this is from the Tempo Storm Meta Snapshot. This is number 30, but if you back it up another 10 digits, you will also see that little brown line, the Grim Patron Warrior, still dominant. This deck took first place, I believe, in like the second week of Blackrock Mountain. It took like a week to figure it out, and then it was basically, as some people called it, unstoppable. And these days, according to the pros, according to what is the best deck out there, it is still the Grim Patron Warrior. The only little dip that it had was at the start of TGT, when the Secret Paladin, the mysterious Challenger Paladin, challenged the Patron Warriors for the top spot, but as it turns out, with many more people playing that deck, it turns out the Grim Patron actually just gets better because the Grim Patron just counters that deck. So, yeah, if one deck is up top, a deck that loses to it will never take that top spot away from it. So that part is pretty interesting. Now, when we get to a few more interesting statistics, these were from Liquid Hearth. These are posted by Monk. Monk's a guy who casts a lot of stuff. He's in a lot of behind the scenes for Team Liquid, and he likes to cite a lot of his statistics. Well, he decided to share them with the world recently. These statistics are strictly from the Blackrock Mountain block. It includes every tournament match that he could find. I'm sure there's been a few tournaments that he wasn't able to find. I'm sure there was this, I'm sure there was that, but you guys can see there's a lot of numbers there. They tracked a lot of matches to really see what decks are really at the top in the tournament scene in Hearthstone. And you can see this is by win rate, all the popular decks. There's obviously a lot of other decks that don't fit these specific categories, but if those decks really were dominant enough in a broad range, they would appear on this list because more people would play them. So this is basically about it when it came to Blackrock Mountain Hearthstone tournaments. And we can see Hybrid Hunter at the very top with 57% win rate, which is pretty good, by the way. When we try to find the Patron Warrior, it's in the middle. It's got 49.74%. So even though people have expressed how overpowered the Grim Patron is in the Warrior because of Warsong Commander, how overpowered it is with all the whirlwind effects because nobody can ever remove them, you have that win condition, and you have the other win condition with you drop an Emperor Tharson, you make your Warsong Commander and 2 Frothing Berserkers super cheap, you have 3 whirlwind effects, and I have personally seen almost 100 damage from 2 Frothing Berserkers in the past. So, yes, the sky is the limit with this deck. It seems so overpowered in some of these highlights. You go to Reddit right after a tournament, oh man, how is this still in the game? You know, they nerfed Leroy because it did too much charge damage, and here we have, you know, this deck going through like 3 taunt creatures and killing an opponent at 30 HP. But then the win rate is 49%. So some people have, subjectively, but on some end have been correct that this is a deck that has a pretty high skill cap. And that's why it's okay. I've kind of voiced this opinion as well. I think it's okay if there is a deck that's super broken. Okay, not super broken, but broken. If it's just really hard to play and most people just suck at it. As long as, it has some counterplay, it doesn't just beat up everything, it still has matches that it doesn't do too well against. And yeah, especially if it's a pretty fun deck to see play, because Hearthstone is a very viewer-friendly game if you just watch the games. If the viewing experience is really good and it doesn't break the game, I think it's okay. So because of that, I thought, Grim Patron is an okay deck, even though it's capable of absolutely insane things. It was a deck that most people couldn't play very well. Some people just didn't even try to play because it was a very high skill cap deck, even in the tournament scene. And, maybe that is the case here. Maybe that is why we see 49%, even though there's so many complaints about it being so blatantly overpowered. Now, the next statistic I'm going to show you guys is also from Liquid Hearth, and it is the matchups that the Patron Warrior has. Now, the green circles represent a good matchup, the red one's a bad one. I'm not going to show you guys the full chart. If you guys want to check it out, all the links, everything I'm talking about is in the description below. But what I want to just tell you guys is that out of the list of the Blackrock Mountain decks, the Grim Patron Warrior is the only one that has one matchup below 40%, and that matchup is against Handlock. So Handlock, I think, was 30% chance to win against Grim Patron Warriors. These are statistics from the tournaments in that time. These aren't just these are actual facts, okay? And no other deck has, been able to really break it. Like, if you're over 40% chance to win against a deck, especially considering it's a high skill cap deck, you basically are not going to be the underdog in any matchup in the entire game aside from Handlock. And how popular is Handlock? Well, it turns out it's not very popular. It's not very popular because with decks being more and more aggressive, Handlock is a deck that's traditionally been able to hold off this aggression, put down that wall just in time, but with decks being slightly more aggressive these days, Handlock hasn't been able to survive a lot of these pushes, and a lot of very weird, different type of Handlocks have to come up. Demon Handlock has come up a little bit, and it's slightly better against some of these decks, but again, it's not truly that consistent. It's coming up quite a bit recently, but still, it's been mainly, tier 2, tier 3 material in the last few months. So Grim Patron Warrior really only has one counter, and people don't really play it that much in the tournament format. They do play it, just not that much. So what changes with TGT? Because, there's a lot of people talking about how they want to nerf Grim Patron Warrior in the Blackrock patch, but now we have TGT. The game is different, the scenarios are different. So when we go back to the Tempo Storm Meta Snapshot, we can see how some of the new decks interact with Grim Patron. I already mentioned that Secret Pally is horrible against Grim Patron Warrior. There's also been more play of the Aggro Pally, and that's actually the best matchup for the Patron Warrior, I believe. It just absolutely destroys the deck. And the other deck that's come up that's fairly popular from the TGT block is the Dragon Priest. And the Dragon Priest is 50% against the Grim Patron Warrior. How about that? And I'm sure if it's a good Patron Warrior piloting the deck, it probably is, considerably higher than that. So, is Grim Patron Warrior okay given this scenario? And after I've seen the numbers, after I've seen the statistics, I have to say that it's not really okay for the game. And I really want to give you guys some kind of background info here. It's, in my opinion, if a deck can do an infinite amount of damage, forget 50, forget 60, infinite. Pretend there's an infinite combo, as there are in other games, like Magic the Gathering or something like that. Those decks are not considered broken in that game, and I don't think a deck that is capable of doing that in Hearthstone is really broken. The amount of damage, the situation that you can break, doesn't actually matter. Like in Hearthstone, you do have infinite damage combos. If you want, you can play Sorcerer Apprentice and then echo them and then echo them again, and then you can like Emperor Tharson, and then you can play Antonidas for 6 and 4 Sorcerer Apprentice for 1 mana. You can do a infinite Fireball combo that's really only restricted by the end turn timer, and your opponent can't do anything to actually stop that except from killing you. So there already are infinite damage combos in the game. People don't talk about them because the amount of damage that you do in one turn really doesn't matter. That's not what makes the deck overpowered. It's how consistently you can actually just win games, which might make it overpowered. So it just looks like Grim Patron just doesn't have a counter. This combo deck is too much of a combo deck. It really just doesn't care about what you're going to do, and it just plays by itself. That's why it has so many good matchups. That's why it has almost all good matchups in the entire range of Hearthstone decks right now. So that's really what makes it overpowered. There's not enough counters for this type of deck. There's not enough counters to stop combo decks. There's not enough counters to stop charge creatures from just leveling you. You know, there's no creature that stops charge effects from being played. There's no creature that, you know, they try to introduce like Chill Mob, but that just doesn't work. There's just too many situational effects on too high mana cost of a card. So it just doesn't work. They didn't introduce anything like Ice Block in the game, so you know, what can you do? They really introduced no counters in TGT for this deck. They only made more aggressive decks possible, but still, those decks also lose to Grim Patron Warrior. So Grim Patron Warrior is actually broken right now. Will they nerf it? Yeah, seems like a pretty unusual time to do so because we are leading into the BlizzCon tournament very, very soon here. So I kind of have my doubts that they will change any card at all leading up to this tournament. But on the flip side, you have to consider, yeah, so they probably should do something, but if they do something, what actually happens? And this is an experience I want to share with you guys because, you know, I play several accounts when I play Hearthstone. I like to have fun, so I'm not at a very high rank when I play ranked Hearthstone on ladder. And even though the tournament format is a bit broken because of this deck, the ladder experience would be more broken if this deck didn't exist. And I say this because when I'm at like rank 12, rank 10, that kind of area, it's literally Tempo Mage, Hybrid Hunter, Face Hunter, Hybrid Hunter, Mid-Range Hunter, Secret Pally, 5 more Secret Pallies, and an Aggro Pally. So to keep all these like really stupid decks that in my opinion ruin the ranked and ladder grinding experience, at least for me, to keep these in check, you have to have decks that actually counter them. And control decks really don't counter them. Most of the reason why these decks are kept in check is because of the dominance of the Grim Patron Warrior. So if you just butcher the deck, doesn't exist anymore, you're going to have that consistent ladder experience throughout every single ranked, and then you're just going to not enjoy the game very much. So there's a lot of things that Blizzard has to do to kind of balance out, to kind of fix the Grim Patron being as powerful as it is, because they probably should. You know, no deck has ever been dominant for this long of a period in the history of Hearthstone. So, yeah, maybe it's time to look at it. But on the other hand, you know, you have to look at the bigger picture. And I feel because you have to fix so many different things at the same time, what it's really going to take for not just the ladder. The ladder experience right now is fine because most people suck at Grim Patron on ladder. For the ladder experience to be fixed and for the tournament scene to be balanced, for both of those things to come together, it's really going to take another expansion that addresses every single factor at the same time. So for that, I guess we'll have to wait a little bit, and I guess we'll have to see just what Blizzard can come up with. But I have high hopes. They've done a pretty good job on the game so far, so there's no reason to expect disappointment. And, well, I guess we'll have to leave it at that. Hope you guys have enjoyed some of the statistics I presented you guys, some of my opinions, give you guys some thought. Enjoy it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.